Welcome, Adventure. I'm GM Goblin, your GM Goblin, and today we're going to look at challenge ratings when designing an encounter. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it doesn't always stack up? We're going to look at why and some things you need to consider when making your party's next encounter. Encounter design, the challenge rating, that mathematical system that helps you decide exactly how hard you're going to make it for your players. That's always no, it's not always correct. It's one thing that experienced GMs have learned to play with over the years, and new GMs, when you're building your own encounters, tend to fear. But what is a challenge rating? Well, when dealing with design encounters, your challenge rating, which has been around for a long time, is going to supposedly be a guide for how difficult whatever you are facing is. The problem with this is, in a system like Pathfinder, depending on the party and the resources available, this can be off either by a little bit or a lot. Now, certain games that control your advancement and your power creep, your level, they do better at this than others. I think 5th edition attempted this along with making things easier, though I find it does not hold true, and I have other issues with the way it works. Pathfinder 2 actually has a pretty good system. Its challenge rating is pretty good, and that's mostly because of how they balance their classes in their new system and their advancement. All of your older systems, like with Pathfinder 1E that we're looking at today, while the CR system is good and you should reference it for a guide, I find that as the years have gone by, I play a lot of it by feel. So it turns into an art more than just math, which is strange since I love the number crunching. So designing an encounter. If you've read in your book through the DM's Guide or the GM's Guide, or if you've gone online, which this is a D20 PFSRD right now, looking under designing encounters, you're going to be given your steps. Your steps being determining your average party level. Now, this is rounded down, kind of taking your average party level, which I always recommend keep or try to keep everyone at the same level. So I normally level everyone up together. It's more of a story. Everyone gets to a certain point and I just advance everyone. It makes it easier instead of someone either missing a day or something and then being behind and then you're off a level. I do it to make the players feel better, not feeling like they're so far behind with something, or having encounters that I don't give experience to certain members. Unless, of course, they're just going to leave. And then, of course, if you want to be a shopkeeper, you shouldn't be an adventurer. But when you determine their level, you take everyone's average level. So party of 1s, party of 5s, whatever. Every 2 above, say 4, you're going to increase the average party level by 1. The example they're going to give here later on is going to be a party of 6 level 8s, which turns into an average party level of 9. But they also give, when determining a challenge rating, they give you a counter design table, which is going to give you what they believe to be an easy, an average, challenging, hard, and epic. My poor players probably see what most people would consider epic a lot more often than they should. Yes. But as we look at this and you see the experience that they give, so at level 1, you should be able to have 4, or you should have a CR level 1. And so you would think that's normal and that's good. And at lower levels, the CR system is much easier to control because there's not that many differences. Everyone's fairly balanced. So it's a lot easier to get away with just going by your challenge rating. The problem is, as your characters advance, and especially if you happen to have players that are accustomed to your system, they might be making as powerful a character as they possibly can, which most players are. And so your challenge rating will get away from you, sometimes sooner than others. And sometimes that doesn't matter because of the resources that a player has available. That's the reason that challenge rating at early levels is so easy to deal with, because their resources are limited, their options. So I used to do something all the way back in advanced second edition, which was try to create the most powerful first level character I can and see what level CR that I could take. Problem is that it wasn't the same for every monster. So as we go down, you're going to see that taking multiple creatures, increasing CRs by little bits, is listed on the table. And it's all extremely easy math to follow. And if you don't want to do math, there are calculators out there. Juneberry Journal is one that I've used in the past, especially if any kind of conversion. And it works great. Punching in the number of your players, punching in their average level, and then punching in your CRs of your monsters, and then you're telling it to calculate. It will give you the XP total. And so by use of this, you can see that this is your CR of 4 with 1 CR for creature, how you're making or how good you're going to see for your players. As it shows, this is an average encounter, and that's great. Whenever you're looking at your different monsters, like I said, lower level monsters, it's great. But depending on your party, if you do a balanced party like one of my players does, you must always have this and this kind of arcane caster and a couple front lines, tanks, whatever. Then it's balanced. You can expect that. If it's not balanced, then you're going to see a little bit of a difference. Goblins being able to deal damage to your party members is going to show up easier if everyone's a wizard. But as you advance in levels, there's a few things you're going to run into. It's starting to have win conditions that are different. If you have a party and they don't have fire and they fight a troll, you're only going to delay the troll. Now, give it enough time, you should be able to get torches or something, that's fine. But I have played where we ran out of or did not have that resource, and it made the fight nigh impossible to defeat. A lot of these things come when you fight monsters that are probably, depending on your party makeup, probably should be a higher CR. Shadow, for one. Shadows deal strength damage. If you have a full dex party, then you can incapacitate a party very quickly. Shadows, they do touch, which a lot of players, if you have heavy tanks or something, your wizards may not have too high of a dex. They should have a couple points. Then most people are not going to have an extremely high touch AC. Shadows are infamous, along with another creature we're going to look at, for wreaking havoc on certain smaller CR parties. I've played with advanced shadows in a campaign, and luckily I had an ability to deal with them, because otherwise we would have probably been wiped. Another one which is known to kill small parties are swarms. A lot of low-level parties can't deal damage to swarms. If you have an archer and you have a barbarian and a fighter and all they have is weapons, well, they're not going to do much of anything to a bat swarm. And this is a prime example of one that I've used before, or had used against me before. And I recommend, if you have a caster, at low levels, always have at least one burning hands on you to deal with swarms. APs are lousy with them. They always use swarms. And so I always recommend you have something to deal with swarms, or you carry a lot of torches and oil on you. But swarms are notoriously hard against players. Same thing with shadows, for being such a low CR. I've had to deal with them multiple times, and you have to change your spells out to deal with them. But them, and then things like your Gibbering Mouther, remembering that creature that is either got lycanthropy or something that has damage reduction even better than this, and your players are not able to pass it, putting it up against certain parties means that it's going to be a much harder fight. And there might be some parties that it won't matter. And that kind of goes along with, if you're making the encounters, understanding your party as a GM. Now, if you're running an AP, well, then they should probably have thought about what kind of campaign they're getting into, and maybe, depending, like the campaign where we had tons of shadows, give your players some warning. But things that are going to do grab when you know no one in your party is going to have a good CMD is super detrimental. Spell effects, and this is for you GMs out there, and I do this, but things like Black Tentacles, something that has a high CMB to retain your players, I have locked down my entire party for round after round after round, because none of them had the ability to get out. They didn't have freedom of movement yet. They couldn't teleport out or anything. And so they're stuck in this thing because none of them have a strength score. So certain things with your party, things that make up the encounter, Rise of the Rune Lord used Black Tentacles in one part, and it just completely locked down my party. But it, like your monsters, being part of your encounter is going to drastically change how well your party deals with it. And then as you get more advanced in levels and your party is able to have those resources just sitting back, and they can deal with shadows easier. They can deal with swarms for area effects and stuff. But when you have very powerful parties, when you start getting more advanced, then if you're creating encounters, take a look at what they're good at and what they're not. And you might pull back certain CRs of monsters that deal incorporeal touch if you've got an entire party of metal clankers running around. Or in my case, you use firearms and you're allowed to pick at them a little bit. But remember that as you advance in levels, and you see this in the other games as well, 5e, a lot of people don't go farther than 5e. I think Baldur's Gate doesn't go above level 12, and it's because that the CR system kind of gets thrown out. Because as you advance, it's easier. I've had players that should have been a deadly fight, and they take out something like even a dragon super easy. I've had level 17, 18 characters, 1 round Tarrasques. And so as these CRs get higher, I notice that well-prepared players that build their characters well, or that are really good at Google search, tend to be able to take these higher CR encounters a lot easier. And so it is easier for them to deal with these than what the CR system allows. I've had a level 18 character, and he took on a Baelor all by himself and just spanked it pretty easy. And so it was no problem for him. And it was because of how well he played his character, how he was able to gear him up to prepare him to do his job, and just his build. My guys usually run extremely powerful builds, so I am able to throw CR 20 encounters at my characters fairly early. I mean, they recently are fighting, they are level 17. They're fighting multiple CR 21 monsters along with a bunch of CR like 17s and stuff. And so they are able to deal with these things easier. Now, numbers are good whenever you deal with it. When you have monsters that they're not prepared for, or that they're not used to dealing with, things that can chip away, that I add like greater dispel magic, that can help you really bring that CR level back down to a reasonable level. But I know that a lot of times we want to go back and look at our CR systems and punch in some numbers, but just remember that more of a guideline. It's not going to be a rule, and it gets even less so the farther down the road that you get. And then, of course, since the monsters can vary so much, especially in later levels, you're going to have to become more of an artist than a mathematician.
If you like this video, check out my others. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. If you have any tips or requests, drop them in the comments below. And until next time, may your crits be epic, your adventures legendary, and your gaming table filled with laughter.